Hello viewers, this is the newly added Grand Valley South Circuit in Gran Turismo 7 and is the scene of this week's Daily Race A. A race which I tend to try and avoid given that it's normally an absolute destruction derby. But on this occasion I thought I'd give it a go in the 911 Carrera RSCS 993-95 Porsche, to give it its full name. Okay, now this right here is my very first lap in this car around this track. Now I have driven the track, albeit not very many times, but I have not driven it in this car. And so I had less than a minute to try to learn this car around this very twisty and unforgiving circuit. You have this very tricky downhill right-hander here, which leads out into this section, which is the Sector 2 on the highway circuit. So a lot of this track does overlap with the full version, of course, and we're going to get our first penalty there for good measure, just to really get in the groove of what's about to come. And then you have this second cut through, going through towards the final corner of the lap. Quite a tricky chicane, that one. And then you have this very long right-hander to close out the lap. And that corner is very misleading in many ways and not easy to get right at all. And so that was it. That was my entire extent of practice before I was fully thrown in to the race. I was going to begin this first race in 10th position, and as we pull away from the line, you can see I do not get a good launch at all, shifting up into second gear slightly too early as a result of kind of checking up with the car in front not getting away at all. And the result is plain to see, down to last place, albeit just temporarily here, as we move back into 11th. Bit of a barge past this guy, who was a bit slow off the turn, and we go up into 10th. And this is where we can predict some level of carnage as we head down the hill, in a Daily Race A, in a tricky car to drive on a tricky section of circuit. Surely this would all end in tears, but to be fair to everyone, yes, there's a penalty over there to be seen, but pretty much all of us getting through and navigating that part of the track just fine. And away we go. Is this guy going to serve his penalty? No, he's going to have to serve on the next lap. So coming into this tricky right-hander, 3 abreast, and I'm on the outside, not the most ideal place to be. Are we going to be able to fight this white car on the left? Yes, we are. Going a little bit wide on the exit into the side of the mountain, but keeping the inside into the tunnel. And is that a successful lap? Well, we started 10th, went down to 12th, back to 9th. Okay, it could be worse. Definitely could have been better though. Heading up towards turn 1, braking on the 300 board, I felt like that was about right. And yeah, seems to be getting through that turn just fine. Then onto the power as early as you can. The one thing you'll learn about these kinds of cars, especially a Porsche with a rear engine, is going to drift a lot. It's going to slide a lot. Well, what do we have here? Someone who's turned left into a right-hander. Absolutely incredible. But where was I? I was talking about the weight of the car being primarily on the rear. Going to get a lot of oversteer. You kind of have to drift this car to be quick. You have to slide it slightly and get on the power early to truly maximise its potential. Now here in 7th place, going for 6th, up behind Nino Dan. And not quite getting the move done, but sizing up a possibility into this final corner. And going a little bit wide. It's just a really weird corner, that one, and it just seems to go on forever. It's quite tricky to work out the exact line you should take. In the slipstream, down the main straight, up behind Nino Dan, covering the right hand side until it eventually opens up, looking for that 300 meter braking board. We meet it. I think Nino goes a little bit wide, I must say, and that is P6. Absolutely beautiful scenes. Now that was the start of lap 3. This is the end of lap 5, which is near enough the end of the race in the 5-lap race. Now the car in front serves a penalty from P5. Is there a chance of getting away from the cursed position of P6? Well, I got close to him. I got close. But was I able to get through? No, not quite. Wasn't quite enough. Not bad for a first race, a first attempt, learning the track for the most part. Finishing P6, started P10, And I found this interesting. "What are you doing?" is something that a Spanish player was asking to the guy who won the race. Now, I was looking through what this guy did, and flicking through his replay, felt like it was all fine. There was this moment. This is on board with a Spaniard who was aggrieved. There was that moment there, which looked like, well, just a bit of a weird racing incident. On board with the British player, just bad positioning, bad timing. But it might have been what triggered this, because this is the final lap. Take a look as we head into this left-hander. And I have complete disregard for the Czech player up the inside, washing him aside. And then what's to come is even worse. This is the final corner, and boom, Spaniard has been shifted aside and cast into the shadow realm. Ultimately, this British player did win, but at what cost? At what cost? It was quite an interesting watch there, going back on that replay and just seeing what the hell happened. And sometimes it's not all that much. But this was, what we're watching right now is the top time in the world, at least at the time of recording. And it really showed about maximising track width, of course, but then really getting this car slightly sideways, getting onto the gravel slightly as well, getting on the power nice and early, and that's really the key to speed around here. You see they're just sliding it in, backing it in, and this classic Porsche loves it. It revels in that type of driving, and that's the line you want to take. You don't want to approach from too wide. It actually bumps off the wall on the exit of the tunnel, or the entrance of the tunnel. That's going to be a 1:16.4, very quick lap, maximising the car, maximising the circuit. Now it was my turn to replicate that exact thing. And it went well for one corner until we got to the second corner, and you can see there just how easy it is to lose control of this car, spin it round. Before you know it, a very embarrassing trip to the wall or just facing the wrong way. And this is my time trial. You can see here I just kept it all in one session, a couple of penalties to report of, but this is lap 10, getting a good line through turn 1. This downhill left-right was really tricky. You have to turn in earlier than you think to this right-hander, and maybe brake a bit more than you think, but then you can really carry the speed on the exit, trying to dip two wheels into the gravel. This right-left wasn't as good as I could have taken it, holding the brake on a little bit too long and not letting the car flow, but a good exit through this left-hander, getting on the power nicely, moving slightly away from the Ghost, 1.5 tenths up on a 1:18.0, and just trying here to get into the 17s. And you can just dip two wheels onto the gravel slightly on a lot of these corners just to really maximise the width of the circuit. Then that was an okay line, on the power nice and early, into the tunnel, and that was going to conclude my best qualifying lap of a 1:17.7. Not too bad, and it put me 56th in the world at the time of recording, so pretty happy with it. Definitely could have gone a little bit quicker, but let's jump into this race. The improved qualifying time put me on pole position, and therefore the main issue really at the start was trying to preserve our lead in towards the first corner, and quite clearly I have not been able to do that. The Frenchman gets through, and now I've got a bit of work on my hands to try to wrestle back the lead and get back into first place. Now, what I would say in summary of this whole session around this circuit is normally that one, I don't play Daily Race 8 all that much because it's usually chaotic in combos I don't really like, in cars that I don't really like. But this one was growing on me. I felt like Porsche, they do make nice cars, and it felt like once I learned how to drive this car around this track, it was actually thoroughly enjoyable. And I realised that, maybe this is what I should do a lot more often. Jump into Daily Race A. Don't take it too seriously. Obviously, try your hardest and really learn as much as you can. But at the same time, enjoy it and just try to have some good races with some other players. And this one turned out to be a very good race with this French player. Now, I didn't get a great exit here onto the main straight at the end of lap 1, but I am in the slipstream. The slipstream didn't seem to be too powerful here. It definitely helped, but you did have to get a better exit out of the final corner to really capitalise and give yourself a chance into the first corner. And we're going to have a look here. You see, you definitely do get closer, but not close enough on this occasion. French guy Goes a little bit wide. I tried to sneak up the inside on the exit. I'm not able to get on the power as early as I'd like, given their positioning, and so I had to kind of back out there. The Italian driver behind with a penalty, and so just need to make sure we don't make any silly errors here, and we should be quite clearly away as a two-horse battle for the lead. So through this middle sector, really firing it in, carrying the speed through these turns as much as possible, perhaps trying to get a nicer exit out of this left-hander. You see, they're just really get on the power as early as possible, and this is definitely an overtaking opportunity. We are all over this guy, but just can't pick a way through. He's going to go defensive, and perhaps we can get him out of position and try to engineer a move on the exit of the corner, and quite sensibly there, parks it on the apex. There's nothing I can really do, so what they end up doing is going very narrow into this one. And I felt like, okay, well, that's the weakness I could try to exploit. They went narrow, they're going to get a bad exit, and exactly what happened. As I managed then to get onto the left-hand side, I mean, I perhaps could have tried the right, but there wasn't going to be much space on that side. And it's a weird debate, should you go to the left or the right on this track in towards turn 1, because you have this left in your favour, and ultimately the corner is to a right, but weirdly enough, the French guy there just backs out completely on the left, and I'm through into first place. It was a really enjoyable little battle, that one, and good respect shown, I think, between the two of us, and yeah, thoroughly enjoyed it. But the race wasn't over, still pretty much half the race left to go, and so I felt like, okay, well, my main mission now is to try and pull away. And so what it comes down to really is just remember what you did in all of those practice laps, hammer those apexes, get on the power nice and early. You see already just beginning to edge clear, and by the end of lap 3, start 4, the gap was getting bigger, and ultimately at the end of the race quite convincingly winning by about 3 seconds in the end. So that was a good win. It was number 96 on this account, so fast approaching 100. It's taken a while, but we're getting there. Now this was the next race, and this one was quite interesting. We have Roswald, our good friend there, in P2, and I knew he was quick, but I think he just jumped on and hadn't had as much warm-up time as I had. So I won that race quite clearly, but then I could see that Roswald was improving his qualifying time, so I knew that he was getting quicker and more confident, and so even though the last race was an easy win, I knew that it was going to get harder and harder as this session went on and on. Now here, quite clearly cutting the corner, I mean, there's no excuse for that. The stewards shaking their head at me right now. It's a 1 second penalty. It's quite a strong penalty for that corner. So once serving it, luckily the penalty zone at this circuit isn't too bad. It doesn't really kill your race too much. There's definitely worse places that penalty zone could be. And so I didn't actually lose the lead after serving that 1 second, but I did make this catastrophic error, which is really easy to do, and boom, you hit the rock, and not only is there penalty enough in the sense that I've lost a lot of time, but to add insult to injury, I now have an actual 1.5 second penalty. And at this point in the race I'm thinking, well, surely there's no chance I can win. But then that happened. Roswald actually had a penalty of their own, and so this was a very strange situation to be in. I had a 1.5 second penalty, I was in the lead, but surely there's no way I can keep the lead from here. In fact, it was going to increase to a 2 second penalty as I cut the same corner again, going up the right-hander. So this was a very precarious situation. Obviously I wanted to win the race. Second place was pretty much a certainty at the minimum, but could we get first? Now, I made sure Roswald went to the left so that I could keep the inside in towards turn 1. So even though there's a very low chance of this being pulled off, I still wanted to remain in the lead just in case. So all I could do here, knowing that the penalty zone was quite lenient, I could just really maximise and go full attack on this section and just hope that I can pull out a big enough gap and remain in the lead once the penalty is served. Coming down here, I'm going to get another penalty, courtesy of cutting the track once again. So this was a disaster, 2.5 seconds worth of penalty. But weirdly enough, Roswald also made quite a few errors just in that sector, the exact sector where I needed them to make mistakes. And boom, I've remained in the lead. I do not know how that one happened, really. I got very lucky there because with all those mistakes and penalties, I should have lost. I should have been in second, but sometimes, you know, you just got to do all you can do and hope that it pays off. And on this occasion, it did. It was going to be another win, a very close fought race. And I found it interesting to look back at the replay and take a look at what happened to Roswald. So coming down the hill, just gets a little bit wide here. So easy to do if you don't get enough rotation on the car. And then over the gravel, a couple of times into the wall, and you see the tyres are very dirty by this point as he's struggling to control the car through this middle sector. And that's ultimately what cost him the race. One little mistake cost him about 2 seconds. And there, you see just how close it was as he closes up at the end. Oh, wow. I got off lucky there on that one. The next race, again, quite close. I was able to remain in the lead to pick up another win, number 99 on this account. And after improving my lap time to a 1:17.5, we start the following race, and I got myself a penalty once again. I was getting quite a lot of penalties, to be fair, just really trying to maximise a little bit too much. I should have dialed it down just to a small extent. And on this occasion, it wasn't going to be win number 100, it was P2. Now, this was quite interesting. The guy in the lead, very quick lap time, 1:17.0. And this sometimes shows that if someone comes online and they're not fully warmed up, then you still have a chance, even if they were quite a lot quicker. He was half a second quicker in qualifying than me. So probably well inside the top 30 in the world. So Roswell goes for a move, a bit of contact, but it's not my fault. I'm going to go through up into P2. And we're going to try and challenge for the race lead here, fully in the slipstream. I'm going to try and prise open this right-hand side, which is the side I want. Can't quite get it. So breaking on the 300, we're going to go quite deep, try around the outside. Can we get that rotation, get on the power? Not quite. It was a good attempt, but it wasn't quite going to work out. Almost losing control on the exit down the hill. Got the Spaniard right behind. Now we have to try and go for the lead. This would be a good win if we could do it, up against two quick players, especially someone with a qualifying time half a second quicker. And this is something that I've always noticed, that, you know, even though someone does have a quick qualifying time, as Roswell gets a penalty, it doesn't always translate into race pace. Sometimes people who get qualifying times, they can't quite do it consistently enough in a race. And so I've probably would say I'm the other way around. Not as good in qualifying, but probably better at race pace overall. And so I felt like there was always a chance, and well, this is proving that there is a chance. So even though Roswald has this penalty, I still wanted to get into the lead before he served it, just to make sure that I could open up the gap as much as possible. So again, trying around the outside, as he did not leave any space on the inside, and after serving the penalty, moving through into the lead. And that was it. I mean, there wasn't too much more to say. He kept it quite close, albeit with the penalty right on the line. But that was it. Boom. Win number 100 on this account. And I was quite pleased with these stats. 373 races, 100 wins, 300 top fives. But how does Scott Speed figure in all of this, is the question I hear you asking. Well, let's take a look. We logged on to my American account, and without qualifying, it put me 7th on the grid for this race. And let me tell you right now that this is a great race. I mean, well done for making it all the way through to this part of the video. I don't know what happened there with that Brazilian. Probably abducted by aliens. It looked quite questionable. It was a very strange occurrence as they sort of lag backwards. But you tell me. This race was an incredible race, and we have another case here of someone turning left for a right-hander. Unusual, but it seemed to be quite a common occurrence here on this track. Like I was saying earlier, once this car's rear end wants to turn in a certain direction, it's very difficult to get it to go the other way. Nice little old switcheroo there on the Pink Pig liveried car. And look at that, we're up into P3 in half a lap from 7th. This is a textbook race start from Scott Speed, and would you expect any less from the GOAT himself? I'm sure you wouldn't. Now heading into the final corner, right up behind P2, trying to get that good exit. onto the main straight. Which side is he going to defend? He's going to go to the left. And that's the side I would prefer, as I now have the right hand side as we head towards turn 1. Let's see if I can capitalise fully on that, as we're going to look for that 300 board. There it is on the brakes, and the position will be mine. Thank you very much. Up into P2, Scott Speed, learning from all the difficulties, trials and tribulations that Super GT had to go through, and now really showcasing what he can do around the Grand Valley South Circuit. So down the hill you can see quite a big gap to the leader. He's managed to bolt away early on in this race, grazing the wall there, but not going to get a penalty for that. Not hard enough of a hit, and we are definitely closing. This is going to be an almighty finish between the top two. I'm going to try and close in as quick as possible to give us as long as possible to try to shift this guy out of the way and get into the lead of the race. So a very tidy, quick lap here, keeping it nice and narrow, and that's about the best line I would say I was taking all day through that corner. This is the beginning of lap number 3, and look at this, on the brakes, nice and late, nice and brave, closing up big time to MC Herman, the leader, grazing off the wall on the downhill section here. And this is the end of lap 3. You can see getting even closer, fully now in that slipstream. I'll be close enough to go for an overtake in the first corner. Not quite, but on the exit some space is going to go up. I'm going to try and get myself into that space. Not quite going to work, but it was a nice try, nice attempt. On the outside here, I think better off trying this one around the outside. We're going to tuck in and really try and engineer an opening where we can. Slightly wide, but again, it's very risky to put that one side by side through that turn. So I'll back out, wait for another opportunity, and I didn't want to rush a stupid overtake. I just wanted to play this one nice and safe. If the opportunity came up, then of course we'd go for it, but we're not going to go and send it at an absolutely stupid place, you know. Scott Speed doesn't make rash decision like that. Going to be carefully considered, and we're going to make sure we pull the trigger at the right moment. Now, this is the final time we're going to go down the entirety of the main straight, and therefore this is quite an important straight here. Am I going to be close enough to get this move done in towards turn 1? Again, not quite. This guy was doing just enough to stay ahead through that final corner, and therefore into turn 1 as well. And so this was a very tricky test. I was quite clearly quicker. I caught up with him in about a lap and a half, from about 1.5 seconds behind. But I just couldn't get away through. He was driving consistently and well enough, but I couldn't do anything. And he wasn't making any glaring errors. It was a very good drive under quite a lot of pressure. And so we had to get quite creative here. In towards the final sector of the final lap, looking to the inside, I decided I had to try and get him out of position. And I think he went in there a little bit narrower than he would have liked. And that's going to compromise his line through this left. And we've definitely got him off to a different line that he would have liked. He's going to go in quite narrow here. And I decided to go in wide and get this better exit. Take a look at this, guys. He gets the poor run, and I thought he was going to smash me into the wall here. But props to this guy. No, in this situation a lot of people would have turned left and murdered me. But thankfully he is a reasonable person, and so that was not the case. But we are going to come through to sensationally win, and Scott Speed doesn't miss once again. Incredible stuff. Thank you so much for watching. Really hope you enjoyed the video. Have an amazing day, and I shall catch you next time. Goodbye.